I wished one or two said no. One or two. Somebody. Everybody said, let's go.
Themselves. Look at the suicide rate of transmasculine folks. It is at 55%. And one of the factors that could save their lives is support, right? And so if we have folks that are committing suicide because they're not allowed to transition, how do we fix that? If you're telling me the transition for children or minors is something that shouldn't be done.
I am very sensitive to this subject, as I've been the person who has had to talk people off the ledge when it comes to suicidality. The discussion around how we talk about suicide is a very dangerous one in this community. You know, my parents were told, do you want a dead daughter or a living son? That's not an appropriate way to talk about that.
And I understand that, but it is our transmasculine youth that are at the highest risk
I
of
understand
suicide.
that, and they deserve help. But we also need to have a responsible conversation that is not using suicide as a means to push them down a pipeline before they have that comprehensive care.
So I have a question.
Sorry, Aris, I know you've been wanting to say something.
Yeah, no, because I have a big problem. Oh, yeah, no, so I'm not an interrupter. What I'm going to say is we insult children, our youth, so much by taking away their autonomy and their own agency over their own decisions and insulting that they know who they are. Like an adult knows who they are more than they do. No one knows who I am more than I do.
Right.
And it's always been that way. I've always known who I was. I've never felt like I was in the wrong body. I just had to adjust my body. And so I
have to disagree with the lady in the way that, look, man, I don't know a lot of people that are happy with the decisions they made in their 20s, especially before their 20s, especially with the people they slept with, all the tattoos, why they're drinking, the things that they did not do. There's so many things that you're going to regret. But hey, I think it's also important to give kids things that they can regret about, but then if they notice it was a regret, they can change it back. It's not as simple. We're talking about changing physically your body so bad that you might have removed parts. The hormones that you're taking in your body when you're growing up in your teen, your body is trying to find a balance in your hormone. If you put so much in your body, you will get so much imbalance. That's why certain people almost pass away by taking testosterone. That is the Buck Angel situation.
I think taking away kids' agency and the right to their own body is, it's anti-human.
I have a question. Do you believe minors should be able to get tattoos or plastic surgery or consent to the list of other?
I
understand they are different things, but to what level do we? To what level do we give children bodily autonomy over everything they do? Because here's the thing, children need barriers in childhood development. You need barriers, and they need a safe way to push against those barriers. And I worry with the current medical system that instead of giving them a safe way to express themselves and push against barriers, we have taken some of those barriers away. And that is why you see more detransitioners, because those barriers have been lifted.
Yeah, they're not just doling out surgeries for children. That's not happening
I had a
anywhere.
letter from a therapist in a single visit at the gender clinic office
and
before
that
I
was
had
abuse
the first.
from that therapist who did not psychoanalyze.
Yeah, but no. That has been happening at specific places. In UK, there's a clinic that they were transitioning people like crazy. And I know she's like, no, that is not happening. But I'm like, you saw the previous videos that I've uploaded. It's always, it's not happening, or you're just looking for the information and the algorithm is there. I'm like, no, it's happening way more than you think. The only difference is at specific channel, especially on the left-leaning side, they don't cover this story because they need to keep people in a specific agenda as if they are a victim.
As the rest of your issues.
Right, and that shouldn't
because your issues weren't being trans. There were a lot of other issues that you're
I have a
addressing right
diagnosis
now.
of gender dysphoria as
And
well.
you shouldn't. You were misdiagnosed.
No, I have one.
Right.
Yeah, you had to get a second opinion, honey.
Whoa! First of all, the therapist, they can lose their license if you call them a transphobe because you have so much power. You privilege protected class. You can just do it. The idea that you mentioned that they're already pooping their pants. And there are kids out there that are traumatized. Instead of trying to help them to explore the reason why they think that, there is more like we are going to affirm this. Get a second opinion? Where? Privately? Do you think everybody has the money to pay for a therapist so they can have a diagnosis? No, not everybody can do that. They're going to take the free one. There were even people that were going to a therapist. They weren't sure what is happening, right? Everything seems cool and everything. And then they were like, you need to make a decision now because you're getting therapy. It seems to be covered for a part, but we need to know if you want to transition. Happened in UK. They transition. I guess you were gay anyway. You were never a trans, but hey, now you're a D-trans, but officially gay.
And how was I supposed to do that when my parents were told
That's
that I
not
would
your
kill
fault.
myself?
But your parents,
Their biggest crime in all this
Yeah, now we're going to victim blame. Cool. Nice.
was trusting in a medical system that they thought would help me.
Yeah.
And the professionals apparently not doing the right thing here.
I understand, but your parents were responsible for the decisions that were made on your behalf.
I think that what this really highlights is the importance of you sharing your story, because what it shows is that you can't jump into these transitions, and you shouldn't listen to these doctors that push you to transition just because you're feeling a certain way.
At this moment, they're just brushing it off. This is how I feel about that situation.
And the professionals apparently not doing the right thing here.
I understand, but your parents were responsible for the decisions that were made on your behalf.
I think that what this really highlights is the importance of you sharing your story.
No, he said, I was told that we need to trust the therapist because of this and this and that. Do you think only one person told them, hey man, if you don't do that, you're gonna snippety snip yourself? You think the psychiatrist and the doctor never mentioned, well, I'm not really that job, but in many cases, we've seen that if people don't proceed with this, this might happen. If you don't believe me, go talk to any left-leaning person. They're all adamant that a lot of people need transitioning because if you don't, you're gonna snippety snip yourself. How can you say nobody is pushing it, but you know the information so well and you repeat exactly what the therapist keeps saying and then be surprised, well, if you heard something you didn't like, get a second opinion.
But your parents were responsible for the decisions that were made on your behalf.
Yeah, you had to get a second opinion.
It's so disingenuous. And then you're going to talk, it makes me so angry. For that person, if you have anorexia, you might weigh 60 kilo, but you see in the mirror 300 kilo. I think transition is the same thing. What you see in the mirror, you might think that is not the masculine person or feminine person that I'm supposed to be, or at least it doesn't align with what I'm feeling compared to what I see in the mirror because you have a different definition of a man or a woman. And you need to be able to find a way to be happy with that, with time, and not make a drastic decision. I think everybody goes to a dysphoric phase, some more than others. And sometimes, depending how many people respect you, appreciate you, or want to be around you, it totally changes the way you want to judge yourself. So I think, depending on your outer body capacity, if you get enough likes socially with people that you might like, your dysphoria won't even exist. But if you have nobody that helps you affirm that in a positive way, even if you don't have the proper masculine or feminine body, you might do anything to not feel alone in a group. And I know it's a very hard thing to do. But I think people need way more time to make these decisions than do it as quickly as possible because they think if I don't do it now, I'm going to jump. Especially with the narrative that people keep saying, you're going to do something about that. Because at least from the people that I know that identify in a different way, they're not identifying because they actually feel masculine or feminine. Most of the time, they want to be accepted socially, find love, and not feel awkward in the community that they're living in. It's so important. So if you don't have a community that you can at least feel that you belong, even if you're not in the proper body, I don't think you have to even try to transition because if you transition anyway, you're going to be happy, but if you cannot apply the social skill properly in a specific place, you're still going to live as awkward before you even transition.
I have a question though, because I have a gender dysphoria diagnosis, I always have. But I'm still where I am today.
Can I give you my honest opinion? I think that you were probably misdiagnosed.
Gatekeeping. It's like stop projecting on this lady. Let her speak. Accept her truth that maybe she is right and maybe the system is wrong. And I find it weird that nobody calls out the system. It's always like we need to defend this because this is the anecdotal one and there's no more and we're not pushing it. And I'm like, nah, bro.
I don't think I was.
So
do you
do
feel
have gender
dysphoria in your body?
I certainly do now.
Yeah, me too.
Okay. Well, yeah.
Because of the
you
change that
you
made.
want to talk about now, but at the time,
At the time,
at the time, I genuinely believed I did. I thought it would save me. And then looking back, I realized that my dysphoria stemmed from some severe trauma that was not handled.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's why I think that mental health step is so important.
Yeah,
Because I've heard this from several other, mostly female detransitioners who we had some form of pretty bad trauma that spawned gender dysphoria symptoms.
Yeah.
And we can disagree about misdiagnosis or something later, but it felt real at the time for me.
Yeah, no, I'm sure it did. I didn't mean
And
that.
no, I know.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where that's where the mental health treatment really needs to come in and get to the root of that issue, because oftentimes, specifically with the detransitioners I've talked to, that was ignored. I came out to my parents in a mental health facility after telling the therapist that I thought I was transgender.
I find it rather weird that when you're in a clinic and your parents already might think that you're crazy, that the therapist is going to be like, if you don't help them now, I think it's going to snippety snip themselves. That's like the last time I went to take a very important medicine for my MS that they need to inject it in my body. And suddenly they gave me a paper, hey, we have a new vaccine for this and this and that. And I looked at her like, now? I'm here surrounded by a bunch of people walking like zombie. They don't even know if they're going to handle the medicine correctly. And you're going to offer me a weird vaccine? It's like, why do you offer people the weirdest advice when they're at the most vulnerable? It makes no sense sometimes. That's why sometimes I'm like, you're intelligent, but you think I'm really dumb.
And she told me we had to tell your parents so that way you can get the help you need. It led to me seeing a gender therapist who, honestly, the issues I was facing were never addressed. To this day, no one ever addressed the fact that I had severe, trauma and exploitation going on as a young teenager. Instead, I was kind of just affirmed in, you believe this, and instead of
This is sad.
even just a little pushback.
No pushback? Ask all the detransition that you can find or follow any that you can find online. They keep saying, I wished one or two said no. One or two. Somebody. Everybody said, let's go. The ideology is not at a healthy place.
It led me to the point where the very first medical intervention I ever had was a double mastectomy at 16.
Lucky
A
night.
few months after that, I started testosterone because it was the next step of what I was supposed to do.
But anyway, I just wanted to point out this part. I mean, the thing is freaking long, 45 minutes. But I just wanted to show you that that person, Luca, I felt so bad for her. I already have friends that jumped in front of a train believing they're doing something right because they thought they were going to find love and somebody's going to find love them and they're not going to be socially awkward. I seen family members they don't even want to wear girls' clothes because they don't know how they will perceive them. They were socially awkward until they found out, whoa, I'm actually very beautiful if I put once a bikini and people noticed me. And suddenly I saw a click in their brain. And I thought, damn, I thought she was going to be non-binary because she was already dressing clothes like a non-binary. And then suddenly I was like, hey, you feeling good? And she was, yeah, I'm happy. And I'm happy for that person. But if somebody would have suggested to her to cut her breast, I would have gone crazy. But anyway, I said what I had to say. Let me know what you guys think. And I wish we would reach a better place, but I don't think it's going to ever happen. So we just have to be very careful.